Okay. Hello, hello.
Heidi, okay, I called the right number. Did I?
Yes.
Okay, great. That was a lucky guess.
Yeah. Can you guys hear okay?
Can everybody hear me? I guess they can.
Yep.
I think.
I think so.
All right, well, good to be here, Sister Heidi.
Yes. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Pastor Paul is in service with Bishop Ragland.
Oh, but that's an awesome service.
Yes.
Well, where do we start tonight?
Okay. Well, where do you want to start? We just back-to-back hurricanes with Milton.
Oh, it's a lot to unpack with that.
Okay.
Sadly, that's the beginning of a trend, we could say.
Okay.
I think this hurricane could have been far worse, but it hit cold water, of course, that was one element, and a high pressure system from the center of the USA just took the moisture out of the backside of it. So it could have been far worse. I suspect next time we may not be so lucky next year, not this year, but next year. I think this year we'll likely have a few more storms form, but the waters are shifting, cooling, and they may do something similar, but each one is changing or altering because we're going into the cold months. Next year, though, not so fortunate, and we'll have hurricanes in places we've not had them before. We're going to start having them. The USA right now gets most of the hurricanes. Odd fact, most of the tornadoes too. That they'll begin to spread in more places. I would suspect that even Canada will get a taste of hurricanes this year coming up.
Canada. Yeah. What about Nadine? Is Nadine going to be a problem?
It could. It really depends on the weather patterns that are within the heart of the USA, and it depends on the water temperatures. That storm within 10 hours went from a 0 to a Cat 5. So that fast of a buildup, nobody had ever seen that before. No one, right? They thought that to be impossible. And now they know that these weather patterns, they have extreme developmental processes they're starting to, analyze because they're far more intense than what they should be. And atmospherically, there were some, this hurricane, when it formed, when it did that, it did something else, Sister Heidi, nobody had ever seen before. Above this hurricane it began to suck the cold air down from space itself. The ISS detected that first. Now you're talking about the air temperature is about minus 300 degrees. So it pulled it down in the center and it instantly froze the ocean surface water where it was. So you're talking about, I believe they said it was about 5 feet of ice. It was going straight down. And that actually scared some of the folks who were analyzing that data. If that would have happened over Florida, it could have easily frozen a town. You can't escape cold like that, by the way. But it does give an explanation as to why they saw prehistoric animals with food in their mouths, right? With bees still flapping, obviously, frozen near plants and things of that nature. They were actually frozen in time, frozen instant freeze. And they saw that same phenomena with this hurricane. That's when it was close to Mexico.
So say that again. Say that again. It froze. Tell us that again.
This hurricane in the center of the hurricane, right? It was drawing air down from the upper atmospheres. That air is extremely cold. I mean, extremely cold. And it went down to the surface of the ocean. And they saw the ocean below it, right below it, froze instantly. I mean, it was an instant freeze. At first, they couldn't understand the data, but they did later, right? So if that same process would have taken place over Florida, and that cold air, which can be up to minus 300 plus degrees, if it had come down and hit one of those cities, it would have instantly frozen people, animals. You can't hide from it. It'll go through, that type of air can penetrate at least 20 feet into the ground. So there is no 6-foot freeze layer protection from that. It does give an explanation to some of the prehistoric animals that they have found frozen with food in their mouths. Frozen birds are frozen in flight. Bees have been frozen. They were instantly frozen on flowers, right? That same phenomenon, they believe this same thing happened back then. And it's starting to happen now. It's the first time they ever observed that, in modern times. So next year, possibly even this year, we could see more of that activity. Our atmospheres are not as steady as they used to be. We have strong fluctuations in the upper atmosphere, thinning parts of the atmosphere, or allowing more radiation in, more solar winds in. As a consequence of that, some of these storms that are forming are quite compressed. And this storm, the dynamics of the storm were just amazing. But no one had seen that before. And it actually has people a little frightened as to the potential of what could eventually happen with these hurricanes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that can freeze fuel instantly. They can do a lot of damage. So, if it did it with this one, chances are when we have more of this category, they'll do the same thing. Our atmosphere is not repairing. It's actually going through a cycle where it thins down a lot. The gases begin to change. People probably even right now are breathing different than what they used to. And certain locations are going to become bad locations for people to be, especially if they have breathing problems. Yeah.
So a lot of the questions people are asking is, what about weather manipulation?
Well, for the most part, I'm going to explain something that probably is not explained enough. Everybody has heard of 5G, 3G, 4G, all these different Gs, right? The radio towers generate heat. Microwaves generate heat, right? So they cause hot air masses to form. In the center of the USA, we have towers, and we have a couple towers, which cause these heat masses around these antennas. On occasion, they can be picked up by Doppler. Anybody who watches storm formations, they pick up things on the Doppler radar. They often see clouds generated in the center portion of the USA going eastward. And they'll see it in about 6 different spots where these antenna clusters are. And these are simple, 5G towers, 4G towers, 3G towers. They're all combined. They heat the atmosphere naturally, right? Now, your cell phones do that too. Every single cell phone on the planet puts off a hot air mass when you're talking on it. It generates a heat mass from it. This heat mass can sometimes, it can, when people are using their phones a lot, it can actually cause types of clouds to form, right? If a hurricane or tornado, whatever the case is, if they begin to form and they pick up some of that heat mass is introduced, it can do one or two things. It can cause the storm itself to take an alternate path, right? So in other words, they could actually utilize that technology to push hurricanes out of the USA. They could actually do that. As far as feeding a hurricane, right? Well, two things we know. We know that both these tornadoes destroyed critical government facilities. So I doubt they would do that. They wouldn't want it. That's just the first one. Helene caused a setback, and This last one also did the same thing. Florida's the last place you want a hurricane to hit. It's very sensitive in Florida concerning data, logistics, and military operations. So that's the last place you want a hurricane to hit. They know it hit there. As far as tracking any surface anomalies caused by any weather manipulation devices, none were detected. The systems that were in operation were actually in Washington State and a few at the top of the border of Canada, which wasn't enough to affect this hurricane. Now, I know that people would love that to be true, that possibly they manipulated this hurricane. But here's the issue. When a hurricane, sometimes, I guess as people, we have to be careful of our thought patterns, because sometimes if a hurricane is favorable to our cause, people will often say the Lord did it. And if it's unfavorable to our cause, they'll say the devil did it. But biblically, the Lord has warned us about the storms. The Lord has warned us about the winds. The Lord has warned us about the vortices, right? How destructive they would be, and that they would continue to build until they consumed everything on the face of the earth. And those are, prophecies. There are also prophecies in books like Esdras and Baruch, and books like that, quite clear too. So, is man causing it? No, they're not causing this. This is a natural formation of. In fact, Venus, their weather is almost matching ours, right? Now, what are the chances? Even Mars. What are the chances that Mars, Earth, and Venus have similar weather patterns as far as intensity at the exact same time? This is year 3. So it's been happening for 3 years now, right? Mm-hmm. Mars is having worse weather, just like we are. Venus is having worse weather. The temperature ratios, as far as the heating of this planet, the same thing is taking place with Mars. Same thing is taking place with Venus and Jupiter. So we have a heating effect. We have atmospheric effects. All of them are being externally influenced, clearly, because all of them are doing the exact same thing, right? Even earthquake anomalies on Mars, same thing. So if you look at the weather of Earth and the weather of Venus and the weather of Mars, you're going to see the exact same thing. So if we're manipulating weather here, well, then the other planets are copycats because they're doing the same thing at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. Our weather manipulation in World War II, this is where it began. They wanted a way to hide the ships, right? And so they would drop metallic particulates in the atmosphere with some other concoctions. And it would cause fog, lots of fog. Well, then that graduated. HARP was built. HARP was actually a Pervin Observation Center that would help out some of these experiments. But the main operation of HARP had nothing to do with the weather and had everything to do with surface monitoring of the planet during a time where analog systems were used, not computers like we have them today, but analog systems. And they could actually send up infrared, right? And then pick up that infrared back on the ground to see, they would reflect that infrared off the ground like a sonar system on the surface of the earth to track everything. That system graduated to more things, and then universities began to use them, and they did high and low altitude experiments utilizing HARP to change temperatures of the stratosphere, for example, or to augment frequencies over certain areas just to see what it would do. That's when they were learning. Well, HARP broke down, right? It's almost 58 HARP systems around the world, not just in the USA, all around the world. In fact, the controllers of HARP, those same individuals, they work side by side with CERN, right? So all of that's important. They have to make sure they monitor the atmosphere every time they do an experiment in CERN. They also have a space station. They're matching experiments on the space station to monitor these things as well and to verify. There are lots of CERN facilities around the Earth, and there are a few hadron colliders, lots of hadron colliders all across the earth. They're all involved in these experiments. Keep in mind, these elitists, they want to save themselves, right? Can they use weather against somebody else? They can drop the temperature. One of the things they have mastered is to actually cause temperatures to fluctuate, to drop, specifically drop in freezing cold temperatures, right? That happened, it already happened in the last decade, but I think everybody missed it. That happened near Europe. It was an accident. So they can do that. With a hurricane, they can disrupt a hurricane, right? You can actually, you can drop a concoction within a hurricane. It is quite cheap, but it's a chemical. It's known to have an effect and start drying out the hurricane from the top down. You can actually do that and disrupt a hurricane if you start dropping that chemical in there. That they can do, right? But as far as starting a storm, the problem with that is they haven't really used that yet, not anywhere near us. The reason why is because of Doppler. Doppler is public right now, right? If they went to go do that, which they did one time near California, to turn the system on, and people noticed a half moon shape on the Doppler, and they didn't go away, they could clearly see that something was happening with the atmospheres. So in essence, you're utilizing frequency and lasers to do this, right? To change temperature in the atmosphere. Not specifically, they're not as advanced as you would think concerning the weather. They're not. And then the other part of that is you still have good people in these, in certain areas that just they won't allow this stuff to happen. There's still good people out there in the world in leadership and in different roles. And certain things have not gone too far. Now, if war breaks out, well, that's when we find out the truth. Because if we had systems that could save people in America, then we would use that, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be a type show and tell. Bluffs are going to be called. All things are coming to the forefront. There are going to be no more secrets because everything will start to be exposed. Everything will. And we're going to find out painfully that we don't have as much as people thought we had, right? And that other countries are matched, if not a little more advanced in certain areas than we are. Other countries have been hungry for a long time. They've been advancing and developing, breaking their neck to get beyond the USA in a few areas. And we're going to see a flip-flop in this, right? I cannot help but to go back to the Bible and find out what happened to America in defense of Israel. How in the world can Israel have a prophecy like it does and America still stands? What happened to America? I believe we're going to have a setback, and I believe we're seeing the dawn of that setback as we speak. But of course, that's up to us because the Lord he said he's not slack concerning his counting time as we count time. But he's giving us space to repent and these things. And I believe that can lengthen the time or shorten the time based upon our acceptance of him or based upon people's corruption. But things are changing quickly, and people are dropping the ball in America. They're not like they used to be. I believe the church has a place in all these different areas. We keep leaving it up to what we call experts, but the experts are starting to fail at their jobs. It's becoming quite obvious, and things are changing quickly. So, as hostilities break out, people will find out what we have. We're advanced in flight. We're advanced. We have flight. We have observation platforms, which are over America and other places all the time. We're advanced in some other areas, but there are other areas we lag behind in. Right? And most of that is because of internal strife and fighting and divisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so as far as let's go back to the weather for a second. As far as the geomagnetic storms that we're in, how is that playing in to everything now? Now we've had a couple more X flares that just happened, and we're in the middle of a geomagnetic storm.
They will always affect the weather. Always. Mm-hmm. Anytime we have a pulse or material from the sun headed in our direction, right? The earth absorbs all of that. Auroras are a sign that the Earth is absorbing radiation, right? All that radiation has to go somewhere. You're talking about lots of radiation going inside the planet. It has to go somewhere. Normally, it follows magnetic field lines to the north and south poles. It gets taken inside the Earth. It heats up the interior portions of the Earth every time that happens. Well, that heat translates into hotter water temperatures, volcanic eruptions, things of that nature, which ejects more and more moisture in the air, right? Water molecules go straight up in the air. Quite a few gases go up in the air. As the atmosphere continues to be inundated with more and more nitrogen, for example, we have 70% nitrogen, but that percentage has gone up. It's no longer 70%. That's a ratio. That's it's kind of like a guide, but it's much higher than that now. As that continues to go up, the atmosphere is going to have a greater ability to store more and more moisture, right? With that type of moisture, you have a heavier density in the atmosphere, is causing it to actually fill up or drop or compress. With that compression, all these weather systems that used to pass over our heads because they were too high and it was too dry for the water to actually hit the ground, now they're much lower and the water hits the ground, right? So now where a storm would cause 2 inches of rain, you're looking at 6 inches of rain, right? Because nothing's evaporating. It's kind of like in the winter. You can have a snowstorm, but no snow hits the ground. It's called virga. It's when the atmosphere is so dry that the snow starts to fall, but it evaporates before it hits the ground. That's called virga. We don't have virga anymore because we have too much of a compression event in the upper atmospheres. So now, instead of the atmosphere drying out the moisture, it just passes right through to the surface. Hence, we have lots of flooding, massive flooding overseas, massive flooding in Africa, massive flooding everywhere. And it's starting to build up, and it will continue to build up. That trend is just beginning. Every time the sun does this, it will intensify the potential of storms, right? We've had lots of, in fact, the trending of the weather often follows solar maximums. When it starts to relax, when storms relax, and we don't have all these tornadoes and hurricanes, that's solar minimum. But we're not at solar minimum; we're at maximum. And you can follow those trend lines and see the effects on a chart. The weather will follow solar activity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So is that going along with the Planet X possibility?
Well, we have a problem externally. I say that because all the planets are having these problems, not just Earth, all the planets. In order for all the planets to have these problems, something external from our solar system is disturbing the entire solar system. That can only happen through, close proximity of something much larger and much more massive than the planets we have. I do believe we have a binary system, right? And it's so difficult. I know it's difficult for people sometimes to accept that we have a binary system, but that's because the cycling is so many thousands of years in between that. If a person is born in the winter time and they died right before it was summertime, they would never know about the summertime, right? You'd hear whispers. If we lived one season out of the 4, right, we would only know that one season, and the rest would be a rumor. The rest would be conspiracy theory. Suppose we just lived in the summer. Somebody would say, well, I heard ice forms everywhere. And that's, oh, you're lying. Ice doesn't form anywhere, right? Because our lifespan is too short. We live an average of the average human 70 to 100 years. We just, in a generation, we just don't accumulate or pass on that much information to really track all of that, right? In a few, I would say it's about 50 generations. We just lose too much information like that. But we do know they built calendars in the past. Archaeologists have discovered that many of these sites were tracking celestial phenomena for a reason, and it was because of the massive destruction some objects were causing to the solar system. They wanted the children to be warned about it, right? To be alerted about it. But the time interval, you're talking hundreds of thousands of years for some of the larger cyclical events, 30 to 40,000 years for some of the destructive ones. All we have are stone ruins. You know, it's kind of like today. If something were to happen today, and if everything were destroyed, we wouldn't have metals. They would melt. Plastics would melt. All the stuff we have made, it wouldn't be here. There would just be stone ruins. What could somebody learn from the stone ruins we have? Hardly nothing, right? Because we have everything on paper. Everything is data. All that would be gone, absorbed back into the earth. And so through that loss of information, nobody would be able to determine what happened to us. We can't pass a story on it. We can't do it. Mm-hmm. Because there'd be, nobody would find anything relevant to it. But as they continue to dig deeper and deeper into the earth, they're finding some curious things. We've been here before. Mm-hmm. This level of society, we've been here before. This stuff has been here before. Mm-hmm. This whole thing, but it's just been destroyed. And I believe just like we have winter, fall, summer, and all these seasons, we have other seasons that are larger. Right? I just believe this is the last one. I believe it's the last one because of Christ. Mm-hmm. We didn't have this. We didn't have a Messiah prior to the last one. We have one now, and this is the first time we have a Messiah. And so I believe this one is it.
So it's all culminating together. So now that we're talking Messiah, let's go back to Israel and Israel, Iran, Yemen, Iraq, drones. Take us there.
Well, it's bad. It's really bad. Mm-hmm. Israel essentially is fighting the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And hostilities have broken out all over the place. I believe yesterday they had 2 launches from the Houthis from Yemen. Iraq is involved. Now there are countries like, Pakistan is talking, and Turkey can't be trusted. And
thanks for calling us back. We've been trying to contact you about your Google business listing.
Okay.
They have our assets. They have. So it's almost like Israel is they're trying to put a buffer around the state of Israel, so they can be protected and so the people can be protected. But Israel is going to end up they're going to end up by themselves. They are, because they're right now, people are changing their tune. The USA is, most of the news media here in the USA will not, they won't take a stance for Israel directly. I mean, everybody should notice that. One of the reasons why is because a lot of people are sympathetic to the Gazan cause, and they're sympathetic to Hamas and all these people that go against Israel. You have college kids who have been totally duped by messages of sympathy that go out. And there are many people here in America who don't believe in the story of Israel anymore. You know how they deny the Holocaust whenever that comes up. Just these controversial things. So the West is not going to really cover that stuff. But Israel is on the front now. They have to continue to go into Lebanon. And they're still widening that buffer area for some semblance of peace that they can have. As far as a drawback, I just don't see one. Because as soon as Israel takes a break, there's going to be the coalition forces on the opposite side are going to get together and hit Israel as hard as they can. The unfortunate side of this is Israel retaliates. Then so will the enemy forces retaliate against Israel. And Israel, by way of the people, will have to retaliate again. But I also see something else, Sister Heidi, is that even right now within the government of Israel, they're tired of war. Right now, they're tired of war. Now, normally, when you have too many people, especially those of influence who are tired of war, they end up doing something about it. Benjamin Netanyahu is a everyday this guy is he has security problems every single day. He's aware they want to take him out from outside and inside that country, right? He's already aware of that. And it's just going to build up to a crescendo. If they have peace, it'll be a forced peace. It's not going to be something that they're going to sit down and really talk about. It'll be a forced peace. I believe that time will come pretty soon. Somebody's going to force some sort of communication, but it's not going to be favorable to Israel, right? Because Israel they're pretty precise in their movements and what they do. They have a pretty precise military, and they are decimating the enemy out there. They're decimating the enemy. But the world's going to perceive that as overreach, right? They're going to say, yes, you had the precision, you had the timing, but you did too much, like they always do. And they're going to, of course, then the world jumps on Israel, and everybody looks at Israel like they're the bad person after all this has happened. And then the propaganda and lies begin to fly. And of course, they'll demand of Israel to appease these groups they took so much from, right? They will. Mm-hmm. It's just like right now, most people, they just hear of how many people in Lebanon died and how many people in Gaza died and how many Houthis died and how many Hamas are being killed and how many of these folks in Turkey have been victimized in Syria. They don't hear about the folks in Israel, right? It's almost like it's a hidden number. It's like this secret thing nobody talks about. Mm-hmm. And so people in their minds, they're starting to form this opinion, well, Israel's killing everybody every single day. Mm-hmm. But they're not hearing of the folks who are dead in Israel, mm-hmm. The thousands who were displaced in Israel, mm-hmm. Tens of thousands mm-hmm. who were displaced in Israel. They're just not hearing about it. That's going to form a negative opinion about Israel. And we already know that the world is looking for an excuse to turn on Israel, right? Right? But they're not the only ones. Anything that happens to Israel is eventually going to that same thing will happen to us spiritual. If they turn against Israel, darkness in the U.S. already knows where every single believer is. They already know where every single believer is. That I know for a fact. And they will have their moment. They're waiting on their moment now, but they'll have their moment. It's slowly coming because things are slowly falling apart. Nobody wants anything to fall apart in the USA, but this violence and the tension, all the average person has to do is they feel a tension within themselves they can't really explain. And that tension is rising because there are dark forces at work over here in the USA, or in the West period, especially in Germany. Some very dark forces. And they're just biding their time. It begins with Israel, though. When they turn against Israel, every single believer is going to find themselves under a bit of pressure, unknown pressure. They won't know why. But, that happens when evil is staring at you. And you can, for those folks on the inside, they hear them talk and they can't wait till that day comes. Mm-hmm. They cannot, darkness can't wait till the day comes when they can do what they want to do so badly.
So they got through to Haifa. How did they get past the Iron Dome with Haifa? They really injured some people in Haifa.
Iron Dome is a defense system that's based on the Patriot system technology, right? And so it has it is a threat identification system and intercept system. Like any computer, sometimes you have operations that sometimes contradict. It may slow down in certain areas. It seldom happens, but it happens. Sometimes you have to prioritize which target's important, which missile is going to do what. That system will look at a missile. It's going to see where it's going to land. It already knows the counts of people and the assets on the ground. And so it will make a decision and prioritize which one to intercept and which one to let through. And sometimes that information may not be correct from people. Sometimes people won't put in the right information into the system itself because they have to do a constant update on, personnel count and everything else so that the system can make correct decisions. That system does not need a person to engage it. It's an automated system, right? So if everybody just went to sleep in Israel, it would still work. It would still be functional, just like the Patriot system. But sometimes when it prioritizes what is what, that's a difficult time. They also have technology to make a small missile. This is Iran. They can make a small missile look huge, right? They can make a huge missile look small, stealth technology. And so sometimes it's a constant battle of technology to pick that up correctly and to do something about it, but they're constantly developing. Iran is constantly developing technology to overwhelm Iron Dome. This is every day, and this is constant. So then Iron Dome is always being updated. It's always being improved upon. And that's just the nature of warfare.
Mm-hmm. And then Iraq started with a bunch of drones, too.
Yeah, they did. In fact, they know that a station went operational in Iraq from, now they're calling it rebels, right? These are from rebels. There are 28 groups beyond Hamas and the Houthis. There are 28 groups that are actually engaging against Israel. 28 groups. That's quite a few groups, and they're all over the Middle East. I do suspect it will escalate. So people ought to prepare themselves for an escalation in operations in the Middle East. It's inevitable. There's no, ceasefire is not going to work. Benjamin Netanyahu, he has to do what he has to do. Or he knows that Israel is not going to be safe. If he weren't there right now, they would take Jerusalem, number one. And they would actually divide Israel into 3 parts. That's a fact. And that will be the end of that. Israel is identified as the problem in the Middle East to all the countries around it. Even in Jordan, Jordan says the same thing. And at its core, especially when you're dealing with hostilities, anytime you're at war, people will always, they're going to go back and side with those people that are of their own faith. Israel stands alone in its faith in the Middle East. Aside from the USA and allied nations, they stand alone as far as their faith. They're sitting right in the middle of Islamic territory, basically. And if anything regional were to break out, you're going to have a lot of folks who share a faith, which will eventually join against Israel in a war situation. And, that's why they try so desperately, or everybody does, they try so desperately to avoid conflict like this, because they know that when violence breaks out, when war breaks out, any common ground one group has and another group has, they're going to use that common ground to join forces and to go against their foe. And then before you know, it's going to be a religious war in the Middle East, no longer based on, politics, no longer based on somebody attacking Israel or something like that. It's going to be based on faith. It's going to be based on their religion. So nobody wants that to happen, because you cannot fight a religious war. You just can't do it. You can't stop it. You can't make peace with it or anything else. So that's what they're attempting to avoid. Of course, biblically, we know that likely that's not going to, in the end, that's going to happen anyway.
So you said 3, separate into 3. What's the 3?
Well, they want the northern part of Israel. They want a chunk of that land up there, right? They want a chunk of that land to be under control, where Lebanon is and all those places. They want that part of that land up there too to be separated. The lower half, of course, to go to the Palestinians, but they want the upper half of Israel to totally be chopped off, and that land be consumed and under the control probably of Turkey, Syria, and all those guys. They don't want Israel to have control of that. So they don't mind giving Israel that small little area in between. But they want to take Jerusalem also. They continue to say that Jerusalem belongs to the Middle East. It does not belong to Israel. That makes no sense. And that's why Trump had been the only president to actually declare Jerusalem its capital. That was a big deal, because they know the Middle East does not want Israel to have Jerusalem because of its significance. If you see what the Middle East has done, has taken everything holy that Israel has, tries to, they're trying to take it. So that's going to cause some additional extensive issues and problems.
Mike, how you doing? It's Pastor Paul coming back in here.
Oh, quick change. Okay.
Quick change, handoff here. I just got out of service. It was pretty powerful, and so I'll give Heidi a little break here.
We were just in the middle of the Middle East.
Keep on going, Mike, because I'm just jumping in. So you're in the middle of the Middle East.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know a lot of people want that situation over. Heidi asked me. She said, "What part? What chunk of land do they want from Israel at the top? Because they want Israel split in 3 parts. In that top part, they want to go back into the hands of under the control of the region of Turkey, Syria, Lebanon.
Wow.
They want a chunk of that land. They don't want Israel to have that land. They also declare that Jerusalem belongs to the Middle East, not to Israel. So, this war that we see happening. If I was telling Heidi, if something happened to Benjamin Netanyahu, that's the outcome of Israel. It would be split into 3 parts, and Jerusalem would be taken. So he has no choice but to defend Israel with everything he can.
Amen.
And to broaden and to make a buffer around Israel for the sake of the people. Of course, we know that's his fight, and the world just does not. They don't like that. They just don't like that at all. I know eventually, because Israel is so precise in warfare, they're going to say he overreached. The outcome will be that all those nations will then go against Israel, forcing them to do what they have to do. It'll happen by force.
So do you see, Mike, the UN being involved in this process, trying to force?
Yeah, they're already involved. In fact, it was the UN, Pastor Paul, that has the packet of Jerusalem. And when I say the packet of Jerusalem, you may as well say by the UN standards, they have already agreed that Israel does not own Jerusalem. So by docket, they have already parted the land of Israel by docket. They already know what they're going to do. So Benjamin Netanyahu, he knows exactly what he has to do. Yeah. Sadly, the rest of the world does not know how heavy the implications are for his plight, for what he's attempting to do here. We know what happens in the end, and it's unfortunate, but it's there. We know that somehow Israel ends up being divided. The land is divided. Jerusalem is taken. But we know that happens eventually. Yeah. I believe that we're seeing steps to that, right? I believe we're seeing steps to that. And but it is, there is some good news out of it, though. Okay. There is some good news. Because in Israel right now, why is he so hated from inside of Israel so much? It's because people are in Israel that they don't belong in Israel, right? Think of it this way. There are certain Jews there that cannot stand the Jews. How can that be? So you have imposters in there. I mean, imposters of the spirit are there. Right. So the Lord's process of purging his vineyard, that's Isaiah 5, right? He will most certainly do it. And he will utilize, as he always does, he will utilize his own, what belongs to him, his own sacred place, to cause all lands to be purified. When Israel is trampled underfoot, Pastor Paul, you know and I know that everybody who has hatred in them against God's covenant, they're going to raise their heads up and say, aha, see, they're going to start scoffing and everything else. What they don't know is everybody who comes against Israel by their tongue is going to be mocked at that time. They're going to be shown to the world for who they are. And then God said after that 3.5 years, he himself will come down and fight for Israel. That's when Israel turns into a cup of trembling. Amen. And everybody who had their hearts against Israel, well, too bad for them. That's the end of them. Yeah, you're prophesying right out of the Zechariah 12 and 14 that this is going to happen. I mean, some people, Mike, some people don't want to hear this, but this is what it says in the scripture, doesn't it? Yeah, you know what it mirrors? Somebody asked me one time, they said, Mike, I got a question for you. I said, what is that? They said, why why does God allow his people to be hurt in their youth so much? I said, well, think of it this way. If God did not have a process to judge evil, right, to really gauge evil, evil would always say it's innocent. So I said, what God did, part of what God is doing is he allows evil to go against his holy vessels. Because if God goes against a person who really believes in him, then they're going against him. God will always see through the eyes, feel through the heart of his own people, right? That's why when we're in the New Testament, it says we are within him and he is within us, right? So anything somebody does to us, they actually do to him. So a person who believes in Christ is exhibit A. And when the court is held, evil is going to be guilty by what they did to the righteous. See, so what evil does to the righteous is causing evil to be guilty. Otherwise, evil could actually say, well, I'm not evil. Hitler, when he was a baby, he could have said, oh, I have no evil in me. I'm a good boy. Yeah, but see, as he continued to grow, the truth of him came out, and look what he truly was. No one knew that when he was a baby. So in the early processes, like these processes now, evil can always say it's innocent until it attacks the righteous.
Amen.
And God has made the righteous to endure all of what comes against it. We survive, we thrive, we overcome. The Lord gave us everything to do that with. And by the way, anything that touches our flesh has not really touched us, because we get a new vessel. Evil does not. So, but that, that's essentially what's happening. And Israel's going to be the same thing. Evil will attack Israel. It will gloat over Israel and do everything. And then after all evil has reared its head and made itself guilty, then the living God will come down and vindicate Israel completely.
Amen.
For the final time.
Amen. In this, I don't know. I know you guys talked about the heavens tonight. Did you? And the sun, and the storms and everything. And so I don't want to go back and rehash that because you guys have already done it. I guess I have one question for you, Mike. The sun getting over 700 to 800 kilometers per second wind speed, which is some of the highest I've ever seen. And I'm sure it's been higher before, but I mean, this is unbelievable. Is this due to Planet X? I know we've talked about it from time to time, but I mean, there has to be some kind of forces now. Is it because this binary system is really starting? Are we starting to see the beginning of much more activity?
Oh yeah, I'll say so. As we continue to come in closer and closer proximity to its mass and forces, the sun will change, and the sun will in turn change everything in the solar system. All the planets, past all, are changing, and Mars and Venus, their weather patterns are changing in conjunction with Earth. So it's not just, Earth is not the only planet changing. All of them are. And the sun is certainly reacting to something. The trending of its solar maximums is on the incline. It's going up. Something external is affecting everything. Even the heliosphere is different from what it used to be. And that's only going to, I believe that will continue. Now, there are not well-known stories of the binary system and plaques, or not plaques, but etchings of the story of the binary system, right? Of what happens. You essentially have one solar system colliding with another solar system, right?
Yes.
And during that time, we will pick up an additional moon. And which is why I said this small rock's an indicator. This 33-mile thing out there is an indicator of what is capable, what is possible.
Well, that brings me to this question. You're talking about that second moon we got. I was talking to Heidi about this morning. From October 4th to October 9th, we had 10 near-miss objects that come closer than the moon to the Earth. 10 of them. They were 0.4, 0.7, 0.1 lunar distance from the Earth. 10 of them in that 5-day period. That's a lot. And there's plus a whole lot more that are going by. I mean, it seems like we're seeing a massive increase in the meteorite and asteroids going past the Earth. Is that so?
We do. Watch Mexico. I'll tell you why. At least once a week they have an impact. At least once a week they have an impact. Yeah, at least once a week. The insurance companies, Pascal, the data from the insurance companies is they have, maybe they caught on to something, but they're starting to really protect that information. People are dying by meteorite impacts. And I used to track those, how many people would die. I used to do that, silently. I didn't say anything about it. But that the number has been going up and up and up and up and up. Damage from meteorites is going up and up and up and up and up. Just imagine you sitting there in your living room and all of a sudden something comes down through the bottom of your house and something else through your cars or something like that. That this stuff happens. This is about every other day this is happening. And then we have ocean impacts of objects that are about the size of your fist and a little bigger. This happens every single week. Every week this happens, right?
So in other words, we're having impacts. We're having they're not massive big ones, but
yes, we are. We're having this is happening all the time. The reality of it is we're really these things are increasing, right? And just because, but we've gotten in the habit. The average person has gotten in the habit. If they don't hear it reported, it just doesn't exist to them. Right. And so they really utilize that in a lot of areas. If they don't report something, people won't think about it at all. It's just not a problem.
Wow.
You go tell somebody on the street, you say, hey, such and such may happen. They'll say, well, I didn't hear that on the news or anything.
Right.
So that's how people are. But insurance companies always, they keep track of this because people, their boats are being destroyed, cruise ships are being destroyed from, it was one last month that was destroyed because of a meteorite. And so, governments talk when this happens because they have to actually tell the other country, no, it wasn't us,
because it could be concerned that maybe it's some kind of weaponry or something going on.
They always have to talk about that. So you can actually extract the truth from externally or from different angles. If you outright ask them, they always they have some kind of weird story. But if you start checking insurance companies, these claims reports and cruise ship or the shipping industries, their reports of claims, and you find out what's what, you begin to see it. You'd be shocked at how many things are damaged by meteorites.
Wow. And volcanism. I mean, you've talked a lot about the volcanoes, the super volcanoes. I saw we had an earthquake a few days ago at Tonga. There's that super volcano there. We're seeing rumblings, in Italy and the Cascadia. So what's the update on where we're at on that?
Well, Italy is, that's a bad situation, right? Because that will take out the entire lip. That whole place is in trouble.
Where there's Heidi's. Ask the question. He can hear you right through here.
There's somebody keeps asking about a crack in the earth in Mount Adams.
Mount Adams.
Yes, she's here.
A crack in the earth in Mount Adams. Is that New Zealand?
What about the crack in the earth?
What? Yeah.
They're asking about it.
It's on.
They have. I know they're tracking some activity out there. Is probably why they're asking that question.
I think they said ask Adam on Montana Mountain. I'm sorry, but I don't know what that is. Mount Adams in Washington State.
Mount Adams in Washington. That remember I told you those ancient dormant volcanoes in Washington, all the way down into California, waking up.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's probably what they're asking about because there are new magma chambers that have opened up down there. And actually, quite a few things have started to open up down there. They also have this is a sad fact, but the land is starting to give way. Starting from Washington State all the way down through California, the land is actually separating right now.
Okay, when you say, pulling apart.
It's starting to separate. Yep.
And
nobody can do anything about it either.
Okay, is this part of what potentially could cause part of California to fall off in the ocean. We've heard those
It is part of the break, Pastor Paul. And when it, when it goes, nobody can do anything about it. Right now, it's a slow geological process that people's driveways are starting to separate. They're starting to see it. People have to move out of their homes. They can't even live in their homes anymore. So things are there's farmland out there, right? Grazeland out there that is starting to separate. They have to remove the cattle from those areas. They can't do anything about it. The whole top of the USA in California is changing, starting to alter, starting to pull apart, break away. So that will likely increase. And then with one earthquake, that's all it would take is one earthquake to actually implement the rest of it. An earthquake can increase that effect or increase the speed of that effect. So what would happen in a year would happen in a few minutes. That's what an earthquake could do. And that process is already beginning. Plus, with the opening of magma chambers happening, it's just one of those situations. You have dormant volcanoes, ancient ones, all throughout the West Coast that are waking up. All throughout the West Coast. It's a real problem. But this will start to happen in the center of the USA. There are volcanoes in the center of the USA. There's a volcano in New York going up into Maine. There's a volcano in West Virginia. There's one in South Carolina going down to Georgia. It's just, all these things have always been there, Pastor Paul, and they've never gone off. Can you imagine that? These things start going off. It's curtains.
It's crazy. What about the 70,000, Mike? Is this a man-made event, a bomb, a detonation? Is this a natural disaster?
I say the 70,000 are going by way of terrorism. Now, that's going to be an echoed number too, Pastor Paul, because anytime I get a number stuck in my noggin like that, normally I start seeing that same numerical value will come up just about everywhere concerning a threat to human life or human life, but this will happen by way of terrorism. I'll say it again, the UK, that the whole province of that area over there has very poor security concerning the condition it's under right now.
Wow.
Too many access points to nuclear facilities right now. Too many access points. We're not looking any better. Well, actually, we are. Listen, Pastor Paul, somebody put this together. They said, well, Mike, when you were on Pastor Paul's show talking about the vulnerabilities of nuclear facilities, they said a month and a half after that, Bill Gates bought up a few nuclear facilities to utilize them for artificial intelligence. He said, but the only improvements he's seen is security at these places to really lock them down. I thought that was funny.
Really?
He seems to believe that somebody hurt us, right? And it really bothered some folks. And so they started putting up extra security at nuclear power plants all over the place in the USA.
Wow. So one of the nights you were on my show, we were talking about these things. He feels that they heard us having this conversation, and so they're stepping up the security. So Bill Gates is buying nuclear facilities to help
to fuel AI.
Because it's going to take a lot of energy for the AI expansion, right?
Yeah, you're looking at something, a computer system that's just like your human brain is hungry. Just like I know when I'm reading or something like that, right? I get hungry for protein every time I read or something like that. So AI is the same way. It runs simulations in video. Their system is a global monster, right? What they're probably not telling you is that's going to raise. AI will probably raise temperatures on the Earth another 2 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
It's simply about power consumption.
I mean, that's unbelievable.
They get rid of lithium and get some of the newer technologies in there. Oh, by the way, they do have a new technology, Pastor Paul. They have the greatest discovery since since power was discovered.
China?
They actually have a reaction, a plasma reaction, that has fueled an engine for 2.5 years now, somewhere around 2.5 years, just utilizing water.
A plasma reaction
Yep.
that utilizes water that has fueled an engine for 2.5 years.
Yeah. And we're talking about something that works. Now, here's the kicker. They don't really understand what's happening at the core center of this reaction. They don't understand it, but they're going to find ways to produce it anyway. They caused two plasma vortices to meet dead center, right, which causes a plasma-type reaction, kind of like a ball to form. This ball puts out, it takes carbon and everything else, all gases, and it puts out pure CO or pure oxygen. That oxygen is then fed back into the intake of the engine, right? Because it's taking it off the exhaust. It's put back into the intake of the engine and combusted, right? And then all that same is near, it's not 0 point energy. It is near 0 point energy, but it's not 0 point energy. You're talking about something that causes a car to fuel up once every, well, I think the average was once every 6 months. Imagine if your car could fill up its tank full of fuel and it would run 6 months.
So this fuel is coming from water, some kind of water combustion.
If you had a cup of, this engine took a cup of, a half a cup of gasoline.
Okay,
right?
okay.
Put it in a combustion engine.
Okay.
Cranked it up. The exhaust is then, it goes through a reaction.
Yeah.
This reaction contains plasma fed back into the intake. It combusts. Again, it's been running for 2.5 years off half a cup of gasoline. And
wow.
This is a 217 horsepower engine, and it's under load, and it's been running for 2.5 years.
Wow. Wow.
And they do that. They put it together. Everything is working out fine. They don't know all the dynamics of the reaction itself. They don't know that yet, but it works, and it's working. And it's people have replicated this. It's actually functional, working, and everything. So, the fuel system, the fuel situation is going to begin to change in the U.S. Come to find out, petroleum is okay. We just don't need a lot of it anymore, right?
Right.
Because if they do this to homes, that will eliminate. Well, this could eliminate the power bill, period.
Yeah, so they're going to have to figure out a way to harness this energy and control it and deliver it in a way that they can charge us something to keep from breaking the economy.
They made a module for, I believe, Ford has it, and Chrysler has it. Some of these bigger companies have a small little tiny thing. It's smaller than a catalytic converter. You believe that? And but they made it so nobody can go inside. Like if you try to open it up, you'll totally destroy it. But it works.
Wow.
It works.
Wow.
It works.
What about we haven't talked to any about this, the second sun, or I should call it the Chinese artificial sun that they created. Star
City.
Okay. Artificial. Yeah. Where are they with that, Mike, and trying to bring that on?
You know what? Pascal, I believe that both the USA and China have actually accomplished something concerning that.
Okay, working together.
Because, they talked about it for a little while, right? When they were trying to do it, and they spent billions of dollars in both countries behind it. They started to share a success story, and they quit talking about it, period.
Yeah.
Good luck finding out about it now.
Yeah, I know. I haven't heard nothing in 6 months. Folks, I'm not talking about the second moon that's circling the Earth, is caught in our orbit. I'm talking about an artificial sun technology created by China, and apparently Mike's saying actually U.S. and China conglomeration. And yeah, for 6 months, I've heard nothing no more. It's just like it just went away.
Mm-hmm. If that succeeded, how could they tell the world? They couldn't do that. They couldn't do that. Number one, everybody would fight for that fastball. You know that, right?
Yeah.
They'd fight for that. Unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to tell anybody that you succeeded, right? You'd have to bury that in the earth and be very careful in how you utilize it. There is a story, something near that it's just a story that something actually worked.
Yeah.
It had to go deep within the earth, and they have to harness power off of it on a continuous basis, which is causing a problem in the South Pacific. Some experiment that was similar to that reaction.
Wow.
Similar to cold fusion. And but they have to constantly draw energy off of it. Because if they don't, it's going to superheat, cause a problem wherever it is. Personally, I think it's a dumb idea. Why would you want to cause a reaction that the sun does naturally on Earth? Right? No, what happens? Because, I looked at that mathematically.
Okay.
And it did not pan out. If you cause that reaction, it'll take, as you're talking about enormous amounts of material, enormous amounts of energy just to contain the reaction.
Yeah, to feed it. Yeah, what's the energy source?
Just to keep. Well, here's what would happen if you have a reaction. It's going to use every single particulate around it and all the gases around it, and it's going to cause a bigger reaction. You actually have to starve it from getting materials, and it's still going to keep going. That would be like taking the sun and sticking the sun in a bottle. That's not going to work.
No.
It'll consume the bottle, right?
Right.
So if you cause that same reaction on Earth, containing it from sucking it, from growing, is going to be a problem. Because if it reacts with a small amount of matter, it'll breach any confinement and begin to it'll harness everything around it and begin to consume it. How would they contain that?
I don't know.
If you started something like that, it would take too much mass to contain it. Too much mass. So that I tried to work that out mathematically.
Yeah.
Through a few computers, and that didn't work out. It would take too much mass to contain.
Wow. Did you guys talk any tonight about Iran and where we're at with Israel has not responded yet? You guys talk about that?
We did. Well, not their response yet.
Yeah, because
there's a declaration of a response, but sadly, Pastor Paul.
Yeah.
When they do, they are going to respond.
Right, they are going to.
And when they do respond, then Iran will respond to them, and so will other countries.
Russia.
And they're always going to say that Israel overreached.
Yeah,
because they've outpaced all the other countries so far, tactfully, right?
Yep.
Militarily, and all the world sees right now, when Israel is successful, all the world's going to see is that Israel didn't have to do all that. You remember when they first got into the missile fight with Palestine or Gaza, and the world came against Israel saying, you had the ability to defend yourself. You didn't have to shoot them with anything. Yeah, and this is after they launched an ungodly amount of missiles at Israel. The world instantly jumped on the side of those folks in Gaza. And so the same thing is going to happen with Iran. They're going to say, well, Iran, all they did was launch, a couple hundred missiles at you guys, and you blocked most of them. Why did you have to do what you did? Unfortunately, when they do retaliate, I suspect that more countries will join the sides of Iran to go against Israel.
Yes.
Which, this back and forth is going to really crescendo into a Middle Eastern confrontation that we have never seen before.
That's probably going to be a part of 2025. I have a feeling is going to be a year of escalation in Middle East war. I don't see it going away. Do you?
No, it's not. And also they wait. I know for a fact they're waiting on the holy days of Israel, right? Because they don't want to just hit Israel. They want to embarrass Israel. Yeah. They want to defame the God of Israel. Yes. They want to do this. They know that Israel has a God. They know this, right? They already know it because they have papers to sue the God of Israel.
Yes.
But they want to defame the Father through Israel. They do. They want to embarrass him. And so they're going to wait until like today and tomorrow, these days that continue to go on. They could very well do something on those days too. I'm not canceling out another missile barrage coming from
Iran.
Multiple regional. I don't think Iran will do it direct so soon. I believe they'll do it indirect. They have been shipping missiles out all over the place. They have been ever since they launched that first Saudi. They've been shipping missiles out everywhere.
How many did you say, Mike? 28?
There are 28 groups.
28 groups.
28 groups in total against it. Please don't ask me to name them, but there are 28 groups against Israel. 28 in the Middle East right now against Israel. That number is only going to grow.
I'm wondering if regime change is still on the table with Israel trying to take out the Ayatollah Khomeini and end this current Islamic Republic of Iran. I mean, do the people of Iran want to be actually free of this?
You have a portion of the people in Iran that are actually Christian.
Right. Quite a few.
They're actually Christ-believing Christians.
Right.
In the middle of Iran. But here's what's happening, though. As Israel continues, they have to do what they have to do. Something is happening with that. You know, I looked at the Christian population, and now they're starting to see Israel is doing a little too much.
Yeah, that's going to be the perception.
So that's just not. It's kind of like these college kids over here. And of course, Iran can control what the people there hear. They can absolutely do that. You know, the West is doing the same thing. They're starting to control what people hear. We're not hearing the whole story over here in the USA. And so in Iran, they don't hear the whole story. After they change that sympathetic pool for peace against Israel, well, then we'll know. We'll know.
Wow.
But I believe it's going to turn into a religious war at its root.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done.
Well, Mike, this is great stuff. I'm sorry I'm late getting in here, but I know Heidi's been taking care of everything, and you guys have had a tremendous. I'm going to go back and listen to this broadcast over. You got one more question, Heidi?
Hey, I have a complaint.
Okay,
Ready?
Give your complaint.
Okay. I tried to change the subject. When Heidi was talking, she said, let's go back to the, she does not forget her initial question. She won't let me change anything.
No, I let you. You deflect on me all the time. I get emails later. Why did you let Mike sidestep you on that? I say, he's a pro. Wait, Heidi's come back here. She says she's still got one more for you.
I have a question. A harvest date.
Yeah, Mike said it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. He said that he had a date on what a harvest. So, you want to talk about that a little bit, Mike?
Next week.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that next week.
All right.
This week,
you hear that, everybody?
Next week.
That's next week.
You know, I say that because we just had that hurricane, right?
Right.
And that's it's going to be enough for people to contend with, and we could potentially have another one. So we'll talk about that next week.
All right.
But you know, I was gonna comment. A lot of people can't wear watches. They already know why. But we're out of time. So.
The people can't wear watches.
I was talking about.
Yeah, there are people that can't.
Oh, Heidi and her watch. Yeah, that's next week. So
I actually broke my computer the last time.
Yes. So we were going to talk about why Heidi is so micro. I mean,
flip bits. If you mess with a phone or a computer, then you're affecting the flip bits inside the processor.
She does.
itself.
She has some type of aura ability to mess up phones and satellite connections, and the phones change time. And I've never seen. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. I know you've heard of it. We'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about the harvest. And we'll talk about some more, apparently more storms that are coming and whatever else the Lord lays on our hearts for next week. But I appreciate you, Mike. I really do. And I appreciate you and Heidi tonight.
What did he say it was?
What's that?
What was that?
The harvest?
No. What's messing with the time?
Oh, I said there are people who know what that is.
But
I can't see. It's too long of a subject.
We got to bring it up next week, Heidi. It's too big of a subject.
To be continued.
To be continued next week.
At least I'm timeless. I have enough time.
I know you're timeless. I'm clueless. You're timeless. So we work out pretty well. Mike, Lord, thank you so much. We'll be talking to you next week, okay?
Oh, Pastor Paul, God bless you. It's always an honor. Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
Praise God.
All right. God bless.
Mike from the world, folks. Mike from the world.